So again, my name is Dr. Joni Ricks-Oddie. I've been at UCI since February of 2018. I previously worked at UCLA before that, and so I have a PhD in epidemiology, and I direct two different groups of consultants on campus. So one is in the statistics department, and that is the UCI Center for Statistical Consulting. And then I also direct another group of statisticians that is in the Institute for Clinical and Translational Sciences on the Health Sciences campus, and that is called the BERD unit. So that's short for Biostatistics, Epidemiology and Research Design unit. So you see why we call it BERD. And so it's a group of staff members that are programmer analysts and statisticians with our goal of supporting the research enterprise here at UCI and of our affiliated partners in the region to make sure that you all are able to do high quality projects, data analysis, and put in competitive research proposals.
Joni, thank you so much. Dr. Babak?
Yes. Hi, everyone. My name is Babak Shahbaba. I'm a faculty here in the Department of Statistics at UCI. I have a joint appointment with computer science. I've been here since 2008. I have had several roles. I was actually before Joni came and took over. I was the director of a consulting center. She's been doing a fantastic job. We knew that faculty cannot handle it, so that's why we brought Joni. So things worked out very nicely. And then I moved on, and UCI started this data science initiative because the way data science as a field is now growing and having a huge impact, like in the scientific community. We thought that we need to expand our activity, so we created data science initiatives, which now I'm a director, and we're going to discuss it, like what our roles are and what we can provide and what we hope we get from, connecting with the community.
Great. Well, thank you so much to Joni and Babak for being here today. Joni, if you want, you can go ahead and start sharing your screen. Without further ado, I'm going to turn the presentation over to you now.
Fabulous. And can everyone see my slides right now? I'm going to go ahead and, great, okay. So again, we did our introduction. So this is just the our official affiliations. And so I'm going to start by presenting some work on the Statistical Consulting Center and just a little bit about who we are and what we do. And then I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Shahbaba to discuss the Data Science Initiative. So who are we? So again, like I said, I supervise two different groups of statisticians. So one over that's called the BERD unit, which is over in ICTS. And then the other is on main campus, which is in the statistics department, and then as the Statistical Consulting Center. So we are, a consortium of statisticians with the mission of supporting UCI researchers and some of our affiliated partners. So we receive support from the Office of Research. We work with the College of Health Sciences. We work with several schools and university, including the School of Biological Sciences. And then we have several partnerships with some community partners, including Hoag Hospital, Children's Hospital of Orange County, the Memorial Care System, as well as Chapman University. So we also support researchers at those institutions as well. I always start with why am I here? Our goal with the UCI community and the greater kind of Orange County region is to promote high quality research and competitive proposal development. We want to provide you all with high quality statistical support and partner with researchers and research groups to make them more comfortable applying the best statistical methods and research design methods to their projects. And we realize that, again, UCI and its affiliated partners recognize the gap and they appreciate the need for statistical support for the research projects that they put forward. I always like to describe our services as holistic. I think a lot of times when people think about statistical statisticians, they think of kind of like an automaton that like sits in front of a computer and you like send them data and like magically they create something and then they just send it to you and no one talks to you. But we like to think of ourselves as holistic. So supporting researchers and the entire kind of life cycle of their research. So starting out with things, as far as all stages of project development, from study design all the way through final publication, are the types of support that a statistician actually can provide you. So that might include things like grant proposal preparation, study design, planning and conducting of statistical analyses, power and sample size calculations, manuscript support, response to reviewers, support for IRB applications. We do training in the use of statistical software, as well as things like research database design, right? Because it's hard for us to apply good methodology if the data is not collected well. So we also provide help with, how do you collect the data well so that we can do the analysis that we need to do. And then recently we've hired two programmers, two programmer analysts. And so they have background in software, including Tableau, SQL, R, and Python. And so we've been able to also assist researchers with like data management and, processing of complex data, development and refinement of code, development of packages in R, data visualization. And then we do data science, including some machine learning in partnership with the Data Science Initiative, which is why we thought it would be great for Babak and myself to co-present today to tell you how our services really work in tandem. The question people always have is there a cost, right? We always want to know what's for free and fee. The first hour of our consultation on any project is always free. We never want anyone to ever feel like there's a barrier to them accessing high quality, support. And so we want you to feel comfortable reaching out to a statistician or reaching out to us without the feeling the need that as soon as you email us, we start, the dollar signs start adding up. And so the first hour of consultation is always free. And then many of our workshops and trainings that we offer actually don't necessarily have a cost. And so I included the link there in the slides, and I believe you'll be provided with the slides so that you will be able to take a look and see what types of course offerings we have. And then for fee is our consultation will fund the first hour of any project would then incur a cost. Our cost for our services for our industry partners is $150 an hour for project consultation. And then again, like I said, some of our workshops and trainings are free, and then some are for a fee, depending on what's being covered in that particular workshop. Some frequently asked questions that we often get about our services are things like, I'm interested in getting trained to use statistical software. Is that something you can help with? The short answer to that is yes, and we can get into that a little bit more during the Q&A period, but we often do that. Another question, kind of a FAQ that we often get are things like, my organization needs to learn how to do a specific type of analysis. Could you teach us how to do that? The answer to that is also yes. We have some general workshops and trainings that we offer researchers that are, common methodologies, but we've also designed specific ones that are targeted towards certain research groups or departments based on their needs. And so we can do either. And then again, another one is a big one is I need a statistician to be part of a grant. Do you have someone who can help with that? And the answer to that is also yes. We have statisticians that are often added in as co-investigators on grants that our partners put in, either as a percent effort or as an hourly consulting charge as part of their budget. And that's actually all I have. But I also included my name and my contact information for those of you who want more information. And one thing I'll also add in there when they send you the slides is the links to our websites as well. But I'm going to turn it over to Babak.
Thanks, Joni. So I'm going to give you like a very brief overview of where we were, Data Science Initiative, and where we are going. So the next slide. Yeah, so this is where we started. This is Donald Byrne Hall, where we started in 2014. So recognizing that data science is becoming an essential component of scientific research, UCI created data science initiative. And over the next few years after that, the main purpose of DSI was to create awareness about what data science can and cannot do for the scientific community. Also build a foundation because we want to grow in future. So things that DSI accomplished during that time, there were we created a new undergraduate data science major. We were the first among UC campuses that we did that, and other places started as well. Then there were more than 40 data science short courses that was offered. They were offered during that time period, and about 11 symposiums. And also created a new graduate certificate in data science. Before I go to the next slide, our situation was very unique, and it enabled us to accomplish these goals because when they started, the statistics department, the ICS, School of Information and Computer Science, they put statistics and computer science within the same school, and now they call that data science, but this was like way before data science, you know, like was such a hot topic. So we were positioned, you know, like very well in the scientific community to be one of the leaders in data science. Now where we go next, so this is, if we can go to the next slide. Yeah, so this is where Joni's group is going, and the DSI is going. This is a new building for interdisciplinary research that you might have seen it. It's almost done. This is where we are going. And and then that's also where we are hoping to expand DSI over time. And our focus is going to be on like 3 different areas. And these are things that we are hoping that we can accomplish over the next few years. We're going to focus on research as usual. So we are collaborating with different groups across the campus. We are submitting proposals and publishing papers. So research is going to be a main component of DSI. We provide training similar to what the consulting center does. So Joni and I are actually like put together a course together. Sometimes, you know, like they provide courses which are, you know, like a more standard statistics and epidemiology courses. Sometimes we provide courses that are more on like data science, high dimensional, machine learning type of courses. And sometimes we bridge the gap, and you know, we had a short course on design of experiments that we offered a while ago. So training is going to be still a main component of our program. And then industry involvement. So we wanted to reach out to you know, like to the community in Orange County and beyond to explore possible collaborations, possible you know, working on common projects. And again, like this would be a complementary to what Joni's group you know, is providing. And very often we actually work together. So some projects come to consulting center that we feel that they involve more research component, and they involve more new data science techniques and high dimensional problems and machine learning techniques. So I get involved, you know, like in those projects. So our basically goals are well-defined and complementary to each other. Thank you.
All right. I'm going to actually open the floor up to anybody with specific questions for Joni or Babak. I see I see a few of our residents on. Hi, William. Nice to see you.
Yeah, Babak and I are really nice. You can ask us questions. We're not scary, I promise.
And I think Deborah's actually on camera. So this is a great opportunity for you we kept it really brief and short because we wanted to make it interactive as possible and to get some of your questions answered. So,
post it, or should we ask?
Oh no, you can go ahead and unmute yourself and verbalize it. You don't have to put it in the chat.
Oh, okay. Thank you. My name is Ari.
Hi, Ari.
Hi, and great, nice to listen to this program. I appreciate and I'm going to try and connect with you, Joni, and with you, Babak, as well. And Karen, may I say that I'm also on the advisory board of ULP, or?
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
So I'm well connected in the inner circles, but I was wondering if I may. This is very interesting, and obviously there's a great need for those type of services in the market. I would love to hear. Maybe you can describe an engagement in the recent, let's say, year, the size, the scope, the duration, the challenges, and so on, with an either nameless client or with someone that you want to mention. It's fine. I'm just trying to understand kind of like a real life example.
I can give you an example right now of a name. We'll call them a nameless, faceless entity, because it's an IRB application I'm assisting with right now that's COVID-19 related.
Yes.
But basically, I'm working with right now I'm working with a researcher who is collaborating with our group as well as the School of Medicine, because they need access to some patients in the UCI hospital system in order to do a randomized control trial, testing a standard of care versus a particular treatment that they want to give patients that have been infected with the coronavirus in an outpatient and an inpatient setting. And so this is a great example, because I actually collaborated with Babak on the initial meeting to provide some additional context and support based on his background. And so basically what I've been working with this particular researcher to do is to give him feedback on the research design, the study design, what would make their proposal stronger, what would have the least amount of burden upon the participants. And we've been coordinating with the School of Medicine, for instance, in order to help this particular researcher acquire, like, the number of patients that they would need to get from the hospital system, what would be the cost for administering the drug. So we're involved in the entire process of the research, and then I'm reading through their proposal from a methodological standpoint to say, okay, well, what are the places where we can either make this, say, a full randomized control trial. Maybe we need to do a subset, and like we're going to couch a pilot study within that randomized control trial, right? So that might be something that might be a little bit complex to think about from the experience, from the background of, say, maybe a medical doctor, but we can provide that type of support and say, okay, these are the ways in which you can collect the kind of information that you need, that you can test your primary and secondary endpoints in a way that's meaningful, and to make sure that you're able to quantify the impact of your treatment, but then also inform future research. And so we're going through a whole process now of reading through the proposal, interacting with the folks over in the School of Medicine, interacting with their research design teams and research support staff. And so we basically we're able to put together a consortium of individuals, with the Stat Consulting Center being a part of that, in order to make the vision of this particular researcher come alive, even though they're not necessarily here on campus. This particular researcher works at an organization that's on the East Coast. And so they don't, so one of the things I always like to tell, tell faculty and tell researchers that are in and outside of UCI, we're not restricted to just, university-based research, although this one is using UCI. We can work with researchers that are in other parts of the country who may need that type of support. And so this example was a nice synergy of a way that we could use our particular skill set to bolster the rigor of this particular proposal.
Okay, and also, thank you. That's excellent. And also, I assume that even if it's not academic entity that comes to the table, but perhaps a business that wants to get insight and understanding of data, you can suggest or see whether they have the right data or how to collect. Because one of the slides I think mentioned it, which I liked a lot, because many of the times that I come across scenarios like that, they don't even know how to gather, and I call it the plumbing, to gather the data from distributed, let's say, repositories or systems or whatnot.
Yes. Absolutely. So to answer your question, so we've worked with outside entities before. So when I first took the position here at UCI, Babak had been leading the team with a relationship they'd had with a car company, actually, that was doing some research projects. And we, like I said, we work with several different partners across the region, including other academic institutions and hospital systems. So for instance, I have a project I'm working on with some folks over at Chapman, and they have that's looking at the types of support that the state gives students with intellectual disabilities. And so they receive data from the state, but when you get data from the state at different years, God bless the state, but they don't always collect the data the same way every single year, right? So they came to us basically with like 10 different data sets and different structures, and basically gave us an overall vision of like the question they wanted to answer and how. And so I worked with my staff member who's a programmer, and we said, okay, if this is the question they want to answer, this is the way we would need to analyze the data based on what they've described to us. And then I worked with our programmer to say, okay, this is the structure that I need that data set in. And so we took those data sets and processed them ourselves. And then once my programmer analyst processed the data, he then sent it to me, and then I was able to do the analysis for it. And so that's the kind of pipeline that we can often do with researchers. And then on top of that, like I said, if a researcher comes to us or a company comes to us and say, hey, we haven't even collected the data yet, but we need to know what ways do we need to collect the data, what types of variables, right? Because sometimes they'll wonder, well, should I be collecting age as grouping? Should I just be asking people what their ages are? Things just as simple as that. We can make recommendations and say, a lot of times we'll tell people, just ask age, like don't try to group people, because we always say we can always condense after the fact, right? But if you condense in the beginning, then that limits the flexibility that we may have when it comes to doing the analysis later on. And so those are the types of suggestions and advice we can give early on in a project. So that way, when you get to the status of actually doing the analysis, we're now not restricted in the types of methodology we can use because of the way the client has collected the data. And so that's why we talk about how holistic our support is, because we're like, hey, we're actually most effective if we get you at the end, at the beginning of your project as opposed to the end, right? Because we always say we can't fix what's already broken. But if at the beginning we can actually get in there and say, okay, these are best practices, then once you get to the point where you actually need us to do the analysis, things are much more flexible and things go much easier. And we can tell you at the beginning, like, yes, if you collect the data this way, we have this sample size, we have these individuals who collect the information, and you ask your questions this way, we can reduce bias and, increase our ability to be able to answer the question in the way you want.
Okay, no, thank you very much. I appreciate it. And so you're doing a lot of, or capable of doing also feature engineering. I can hear that, right?
I don't know what feature engineering is, but I guess I could smile and nod and say yes. I may need a definition of what that is.
That's a good answer. We'll talk about it. I don't want to control the conversation.
I want to, yes, because that was a good question. And I also want to give an example, because the nature of our interaction with companies and, like external collaborators is a little different. I still work very closely with Joni, like when projects like that come along. But one example that we have, like there's a financial institute here in Orange County that they gave UCI, like a generous gift. That's usually the way we work. We don't charge, like but like they provide gifts, and then in return they expect some type of collaborations. Like whether a PhD, they support a PhD student who works on a specific topic. But with this company, what we did, I talked to them. It seemed that they already have like many PhD. Employees that they know how to do, like statistical analysis and so forth. But they wanted to stay up to date. So what they asked me to provide is like, we made the arrangements, some of our faculty members to go there, and have a meeting with them, present their work. And they, more than that, they wanted to have like some conversations to present their problems and say, this is what we are working on. We know how to do up to this point, but here where we get into trouble, because the traditional methods, they can go so far. And data science, the way there are many definitions. The way I define this is still at its core is statistics and computational methods, statistical analysis and computational methods, and mathematical analysis applied to complex and high dimensional data and problems. So these high dimensional complex problems, they impose some new challenges that they haven't seen before, and they are not sure how to deal with. DSI is supposed to create that environment that they can come and talk to us in different, as I said, like this could be like submitting a grant proposal together, like working on a paper together, or, like just, as I said, like they want some of our faculty to go and talk to them every now and then, so they can have like brainstorming sessions, like about the problems that they're working on.
Yeah, that's a great example too.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Any other questions? That was a great question, Ari. Thank you so much. It's good to see you. I like the beard.
It's just laziness. There's nothing behind it other than laziness. I think that Babak is also smiling on that one.
Yeah. It's COVID. Like I said, why should I shave now?
Well, it's getting colder out. It keeps your face warm. Insulation.
Well, when my kids need a virtual Santa, make sure it's,
add a little bit to it. Well, I guess while people are thinking of questions, I'll give another example of a ways that the Data Science Initiative and the Stat Consulting Centers work together. So we recently had a NIH R01 earlier this year funded that was a collaboration basically between the two groups. So it had myself, one of our Center for Stat Consulting statisticians, as well as Dr. Shahbaba on the grant. So, and the way that works is, and the great thing about the fact that what we didn't mention about Babak is that he is also my faculty liaison in the statistics department. So whenever projects come in, because I have, master's and PhD level statisticians, but obviously it's impossible for us to have a group of statisticians that are experts in every subject matter under the sun, right? And so, but what a good group has, and it would help us excel, would be able to have access to the expertise that we have. And so that's the great thing about us being housed in the stats department and having that relationship. So whenever we come across projects that require maybe novel techniques that perhaps my statisticians have not been trained in, I can talk to Babak and I say, hey, I have X problem. So maybe it's on we had some microbiome projects that came along that we needed some additional support in, or, perhaps it's a novel methodology for doing prediction analytics. I can go to Babak and say, hey, this is the issue that's come up. It's a little beyond the skill set of my statisticians. Would you have a faculty member that could collaborate with us on the project so we can make sure that we support this particular researcher? And so we had an R01 that was just that, where the researcher was looking for kind of a mix of assistance. So they needed a statistician. So Babak and another faculty member ended up being on this grant because there were some novel analytic techniques that need to be developed. But then once those techniques had been developed, they also needed a statistician who could actually help them do the analysis. And so that's where my staff member comes into play. So I have a staff member that's on that. I'm on the grant as oversight. And then one of the things that one of my staff members does too is that this particular researcher had funding for some graduate students, and those graduate students needed access from time to time to a statistician to ask about questions related to some of the projects that surrounded this main these main aims for the grant. And so periodically they'll email one of my statisticians, and since we're in the budget, we can just recharge from that budget, and then we can use that time. And so that way, holistically, we're able to support that particular grant and the way that needs to be supported from all these different elements. And so that's one of the things that's really great about our collaboration, is that it allows research groups, it allows clients and companies access to lots of resources through the same portal. Because I know one thing that's really difficult for researchers is that they feel like I have to go here for this and then over here for this, and it's just kind of disparate types of resources. And so what we've really tried to create here is a main hub for access, so that you're not having to go to all these different entities to try to get the support, and then trying to get these people to talk together, right? Babak and I already talk. We get along well, I promise. We're not just pretending for the phone, for the Zoom meeting. We actually like each other. And so it actually creates a really great synergy for supporting of research projects.
That's a good point. I mean, something that the consulting center is a gateway, like you guys can approach it, with your problems. But very often what happens in the background, Joni and I would discuss it, if it requires, to involve a faculty member or PhD students. And that was a great example, like a researcher came and said, I need some data analysis, but this can go beyond that because we need to also develop some new methodologies. And because, I know, like every faculty member and what they're working on, what their expertise is, I can be a matchmaker. I can say like, this person is interested in this kind of problems. Besides, like the Center for Statistical Consulting, we can also involve a faculty member, so we can cover the whole thing, just standard data analysis and developing new methodologies.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent.
Hi, everyone. My name is Debbie Davenport, and to both doctors, Dr. Oddie and Shahbaba. Did I pronounce it right, Dr. Shahbaba?
Yeah.
Very good. My company is True Asset, and I think it was Saturday, I went online just to be nosy to see what's coming up that missed me. And I find out through the SBA that there's going to be an online seminar. And I said, the topic was interesting and dealt with research. The area that I would like to see if your organization or your partnerships could help my company in deals with the Department of Homeland Security. There is an initiative out of the Department of Homeland Security, which actually occurred in 2012 under the Obama administration. They began a new initiative called Manufacturing USA, which centered on small companies in the United States to help them be more competitive globally. So the initiative has several components. Recently, under the new administration, it was reorganized under the Department of Commerce. So I think with the Biden administration, it might change back to the Department of Homeland Security. But some of the programs that this brand new initiative Some of the programs that they highlight is research from the business community on manufacturing activity. One of the programs that I wanted to see if I could possibly qualify for funding deals with the need of true, actual stakeholder data generated from the small business community. I have some of the data, and some of the other information is more proprietary. I can't get access to. But I think if I can use your services or incorporate your services, that we probably could get funding to do certain type of analysis dealing with small businesses, particularly in impoverished neighborhoods. The Netflix program underneath this initiative focuses on a youth from those impoverished areas and how they can get those children or students to look to more sustainable manufacturing. Hopefully center on their desire to be interested in it, to later on pursue careers in it. So this is a relatively new program. I think it really got going in 2016. Right now I'm at the cutting edge to see if that's a possibility. So I did some more research and found out in Southern California, the Netflix program is not even nowhere in Southern California. So what I decided to do, I'm gonna use my company and in a partnership, is to get the Netflix program in a very impoverished neighborhood, community rather, in the city of Pomona, where I used to live. And because I'm really close friends with the superintendent. And I said, I can get this program, I'm sure, to be placed in at the school district. That's what my main concern. I would love to get some funding for that. There are proposals out, but because I don't have that PhD, those PhD flags, all right? But I do have interim, close to getting my own doctorate, but I don't have a organization that has a strong PhD presentation. I think with that, I could get the funding. Rather than just see one person that's interested in the proposal. If they see a name like UCI or UCLA, there's a better chance to get the funding. I've got most of the data to support, and I've already done my analysis, to support that there is a correlation between specific business practices, not every practice, but certain practices influence financial performance. And a lot of the small cap American firms, they're slowly disappearing from the public markets. Recently in 2016, a lot of the researchers are saying there needs to be more studies done. I believe my study would be the first one, once it gets approved by the CAO, is the first in the country to look at small cap manufacturers within the United States. And why I did find that there's a correlation. So I know exactly where the manufacturing initiative should go to strengthen to influence the strengthening of small business financial performance. But I would like to pick it up from there and take it a little further.
So let me ask you a follow-up question, Deborah or Debbie. So are you looking for, as far as, so when you, it sounds like you're interested in submitting some type of grant proposal then to support an individual project. Yes. And so from Babak and I's perspective, how do you see us fitting into that as, say, like a co-investigator? What would exactly be our role?
There'll be two areas that I know one of my constraints is there's a commercial database called MSCI KLD. I requested repeatedly is to get access to the data set to use it in my study. Well, it was always no. But I think if I could, and what the data set gathers ESG information, environmental, social, and governance information. MCI collects data on some of the largest US public corporations. And they look at each of the corporations and make a determination if an investor should invest in that organization based on their ESG activities. A lot of the larger corporations are already in the data set, very few small corporations. And there's a good reason. They usually delist even before they could, once they leave their private establishments and decide to go public 5 years later, they delist from the public markets. So I already.
Question?
Sure.
Sorry?
Question?
I have a suggestion, if I may, because for two reasons. I think I understand a little bit how UCI works, being involved in UCI for the last 30 years or so.
Mm-hmm.
And second, since recently I went through a similar scenario, Deborah, in a sense that I recently, together with BLI, submitted a NIH proposal, right? And BLI is a center at UCI. So from the same, putting myself in your shoes, I also needed academic institution,
Yeah.
PhDs and researchers.
Yes.
And it was, I don't remember I think it was STTR because of the relationship of the between.
Mm-hmm.
But I went through the same considerations of, okay, how do I kind of grab the right people? So I kind of searched at UCI for different pockets and research centers. And I think that if I understand, I don't want to speak out of term, but if you find the right partner at UCI, then Joni and Babak can be augmenting that effort. It sounds to me, and again, I'm not trying to talk out of, but for me, I'll give you an example. At the business school, which I'm very involved with, as well as ICS, engineering, physical sciences, and many other places. That's why I'm saying I'm kind of familiar with UCI. At the business school, for example, there's a Center for Investment and Wealth Management, and it's run by Leanne Mackey. And I suspect that your true academic partner for a grant submission together could be of an interest to some of the faculty in a business. I'm not saying that this is the only, I'm just giving an example, and it might be some other places that both Babak and Joni might know and suggest. But once you have that partner in your company, and then you go to DSI, if I understood this presentation correct, and said, hey, DSI, can you come and help? Here's the faculty, here's me, and you guys can help with the stats or predictive analytics or whatever their specific services. Then it sounds to me like you have a winning team. But
yeah, I could even get, I don't mean to interrupt you, but I think fast and I'm interrupting somebody. I don't mean to interrupt you, but I think MSCI would see, well, this has more of a polished look, a polished request. There's a potential for a lot of political recognition. And they see those list of the PhDs that are associated with this project. They would let me use the database.
Yes.
The data set. Sorry.
Yeah. What Ari is suggesting is that sometimes there should be a domain expert involved in the proposal. You know, like for example, when we submit proposal like related to neuroscience, we get a neuroscientist involved, but then we are also involved because this always requires some kind of data analysis and statistical analysis. So we get involved, you know, but very often there is also a domain expert that's what Ari is suggesting. So your team probably would include a combination of Center for Statistical Consulting or DSI, but also it probably it needs, you know, like a domain expert. That's what Ari was referring to.
Okay, all right. I have to look up. I never heard that word before.
Yeah,
you're absolutely right. In my example, for example, I needed a physicist, an MD, and a chemist. And so after fishing in several places and talking to some key points that I have, so it happened that within the BLI, I had the group, the right composition of the group. And then, of course, should I need some, we're not there yet with that particular thing, but now that I've learned about DSI, which is phenomenal, I'm very happy to be introduced. Thank you,
Very
Karen.
similar to my situation. I need a domain expert.
Yeah. It always, now like the field is moving to like these, like interdisciplinary teams, like, they call it team science or team scholarship, like, so any project requires, like a broad range of expertise. And what Joni and I provide is on the statistical and data analysis end of this, like in this involvement, this project. But it almost always requires some people, like some scientists, like engineers with domain expertise.
Sure.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And I would think that, Karen, you and University Lab Partners, would that be something you'd be able to help Debbie identify, is perhaps that domain expert or someone on campus that would be specifically interested in the issue of kind of small cap manufacturing companies?
We focus primarily in the life science and space. So I'm trying to think off the top of my head.
I'm just wondering if, since the Beal Center for Applied Innovation, I would wonder if you all would have connections to individuals that work in that space.
Yeah. Well, our true focus is, life science, med tech. So not off the top of my head, but Deborah, if you sent me a little more detail in regards to what you're needing, and I can poke around. I mean, we do have connections around campus.
I'll help you, Karen, if you want, because based on the topic, it sounds to me it could be a possibility of business school. It could be a possibility of social studies, social sciences. I'm not sure if that's an element that Deborah emphasized as well.
Yes.
Is that correct, Deborah? Social sciences might be also relevant, or
be more
not really?
business. Be more in business.
Okay, so
manufacturing,
in the business school,
manufacturing touches some areas of social issues, but the ultimate goal is profitability. So it's more business.
if you will share with us a paragraph or two, kind of high-level statement of what is the purpose of the project, I think that we will be able to find rather quickly.
Yeah, and then I wouldn't want Dr. Oddie. I keep wanting to say Ozzy, but
it's actually Odie, like the dog from Garfield.
Oh, okay, yeah, the print's so small I couldn't see. OD.
It's okay.
Odie, Dr. Odie. I would definitely like to see if keep her involved. I know it's not a medical area.
It doesn't need to be. So the research practices that we do in the methodology that Babak and I both work in is applicable to any number of arenas. I think the point we're all making is, in order to bring us in, typically you bring us in once your proposal is to a state where you have like, okay, these are my aims, this is what I'm interested in looking at. And then now we start getting into more of the nitty gritty of like the design, like, okay, if you have to collect additional information on top of the database that you're getting, the data set you're already getting, what might that look like? How are you going to be able to answer the questions that you have with the data that you have or not? Are there limits to the types of questions that you're going to be able to answer once you get access to that data? Those are the types of ways that we would be impactful in a proposal like this.
Okay, because I'm looking at place my proposal in their hands in 3 months, so I have time.
No, you don't.
But 3 months is not a lot of time.
No, you do not.
I was like, it sounds like a lot.
It's deceiving.
Trying to find somebody.
It's deceiving, I'm telling you.
It sounds like take our word for it. It sounds like a lot of time, but it's not a lot of time.
Not a lot of time. Okay.
I wanted to submit a proposal. And I needed some help. They told me like this is less than a year. It's not enough time. You have to come back like about 1.5 years before the deadline. So it depends on where it goes. It depends on how much preparation you need.
Okay.
Another thing I wanted to mention, because you said this is not medical, Joni has 2 teams. One of them is in medical school, the BERD unit, but the other team, you know, as Joni mentioned, we have been doing consulting with a car company. They wanted to optimize their engine for car racing.
Okay.
You know, so we have been, and then there was a search engine.
We had a search engine optimization company we were working with, and they were trying to reverse engineer how Google does their searches and mapping system for Google Maps. So I mean, there's lots of ways you could. So the methodologies that we use from a statistical standpoint are applicable in lots of different arenas to answer lots of different questions. So yeah, don't feel like, oh, I have to have something that's like academic or has to be something that's like health or social science related. That's not the case. Now you may see examples of projects from us that lend that way, and that's just because of the like Babak said, I have a group who's over in the health sciences area, so those people, the School of Medicine people, just tend to approach us because of our proximity to them, but that doesn't mean that limits how we can apply those particular methodologies.
Okay, Dr. Oddie, what I can do is put that together for you and just send you a little quick email, like on.
Sure. And then if you send it to me, I'm going to forward it to Ari and Karen.
Okay, send it to Karen then, send it to her.
Yeah, actually, you know what? Send it to Karen, and then Karen can connect all of us, and we can see how we can assist you. I mean, if nothing else, with helping you find that domain expert that Dr. Shahbaba was speaking of, because I think that'll be the first step to determining the next steps after that. So I think that's kind of the gateway for you all.
I see it. I see your email address.
Great. And Deborah, just so the reason it's on life science focus is because University Lab Partners, we're a wet lab incubator. So
well, at first I thought I was really pushing the envelope here. I said, well, I'm going to still give it a try. That's what business people do. We try to seize every opportunity that's out there, even if it don't connect. Yeah, but it's connecting.
Yes, but yes, so that's why, but Joni and Babak are such great resources. We wanted to make sure, our community knew about the services that are actually just right across the way from us that many people don't know about. So, hence that's why we're here today.